You know that recurring dream? The one where you're desperately trying to run up a steep hill or like you're trying to swim against this really heavy, dark current?
Oh, man, yeah, where your legs feel like they weigh 1,000 pounds.
Exactly. Your mind is just racing and you're terrified of failing, but your body feels like possibly heavy. It's like you're moving through thick molasses.
Right, and it's this incredibly claustrophobic feeling because the
Yeah.
entire world just shrinks down to that one frantic struggle. I mean, nothing else exists in that moment except you, your inadequacy, and, well, your impending failure.
Yes. And that specific feeling, just being trapped in this futile struggle where you feel like you are somehow fundamentally falling short, that is the exact visual we need for today's mission.
It really sets the stage.
It does, because today we are taking a deep dive into the first 3 chapters of Tara Brach's book, Radical Acceptance. And the goal here is to extract the core concepts from these chapters and, figure out exactly how you can use them to build a more peaceful, reactive-free, and compassionate life.
Which is something I think everyone could use a little more of.
Absolutely. So, okay, let's unpack this.
Oh, go.
Because, you can't fix a problem until you realize you're actually trapped in it.
That is the crucial first step, for sure. Brach identifies this invisible, exhausting trap as the trance of unworthiness.
The trance of unworthiness.
Right. And it's not just, a fleeting thought of self-doubt. It is this pervasive, always running background operating system.
Like a hum in the background you don't even notice anymore.
Exactly. It's the underlying belief that no matter how hard we try or no matter how many boxes we check or goals we accomplish, we are fundamentally flawed. We're just not good enough.
Wow.
And when that trance is running, it completely defines and limits our experience of life. It colors every interaction, every setback, and honestly, every success.
It feels so universal to us,
Right?
like just a standard part of being human. But the text shares this amazing anecdote about how culturally specific this trance actually is.
Oh, I love this story.
Right. There was this conference where Western therapists and Buddhist teachers were meeting with the Dalai Lama, and an American teacher asked him to speak about the widespread suffering of self-hatred.
And the Dalai Lama was just utterly bewildered by the question.
He had no idea what they meant.
None. He literally had to stop the conference and ask his translators to explain the phrase. He thought they were describing, like, some rare, isolated nervous disorder.
That is wild.
It is. And when the Western therapists explained that, no, this is actually a deeply common, everyday experience for almost all of their clients, he was astonished.
Because from his perspective,
Yeah.
and, well, from the core of Buddhist philosophy, everyone is born with what he calls Buddha nature.
Right.
It's this intrinsic, essential goodness and wakefulness.
Yeah.
The default state of a human being is inherently worthy.
And the contrast drawn in the sources there is just fascinating. It compares that Buddhist worldview with Western culture's deepest guiding myth, which is the Garden of Eden.
Oh, yeah. That makes so much sense.
Right. The psychological message of original sin is that our default state is flawed. We are outcasts from the garden.
We started the negative.
Exactly.
Yeah.
From day one, the cultural programming tells us that we must constantly strive to redeem our flawed nature. We have to control our bodies, suppress our emotions, and work endlessly just to prove we belong.
So we learn very early on that our true, unedited selves are just completely unacceptable.
100%.
And that cultural programming starts so incredibly young. There's this heartbreaking story in the sources about a 5-year-old girl at a restaurant.
Oh, that story. Yeah, it's so powerful.
It really is. So her family sits down, the waitress comes over, and the little girl immediately pipes up and says, "I'll have a hot dog, French fries, and a Coke."
A classic kid order.
Totally. But her dad instantly jumps in, overrides her, and tells the waitress, no, she'll have meatloaf, mashed potatoes, and milk.
It's just a really subtle but powerful invalidation.
Yeah.
The message to the child is, your desires are wrong, your internal compass is broken, so let me correct it for you.
But the waitress ignores the dad.
Good for her.
Right. She looks right past him, makes eye contact with the little girl, smiles, and says, "So, hun, what do you want on that hot dog?" And after the waitress walks away, the family is sitting there in stunned silence. And the little girl, with her eyes completely shining, looks at her parents and says, "She thinks I'm real."
Wow. She thinks I'm real.
It just hits you right in the chest.
It really does, and it illustrates the exact mechanism of the trance. I mean, if we are constantly taught that our actual feelings and desires aren't valid, we just stop trusting our internal reality.
We start performing.
Exactly. We train ourselves to become whoever we need to be to avoid rejection, or criticism.
Mm.
And piece by piece, we build this psychological cage to keep our true selves hidden.
A cage we eventually refuse to leave. Actually makes me think of Mohini, the regal white tiger at the DC National Zoo.
Oh, the tiger story. Tell them about that.
Okay, so for years, she was kept in the old lion house, which was just this typical 12 by 12-foot iron cage with a cement floor. She just spent her days pacing restlessly back and forth in that cramped space.
Which is so sad for an animal like that.
That's sad. But eventually, the zoo staff built this incredible natural habitat for her. I mean, acres of hills, trees, a pond, and they finally released Mohini into this expansive new world.
You'd expect her to just run free.
Right. But she didn't. She immediately sought out a corner of the compound. And she paced in that corner until she wore a 12 by 12-foot square completely bare of grass.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. She spent the rest of her life pacing the exact dimensions of her old iron cage, right in the middle of a massive open field.
What's fascinating here is the neurobiology behind that kind of behavior.
Really? How so?
Well, the tiger isn't choosing to be miserable. Her nervous system is just defaulting to the deepest neural grooves it has. And for humans, those neural grooves are our coping mechanisms.
Okay, that makes sense.
Every time we scramble to hide a perceived failure, or we strive endlessly to impress someone, or we lash out defensively, we think we're protecting ourselves.
But we're really just pacing that 12 by 12 square.
Exactly. We are actually just pacing the dirt down to the bedrock. We're reinforcing the underlying belief that we are not safe as we are.
So the keeping busy, the
Yes.
harsh inner critic, the overworking, all of that is our 12 by 12 square.
Yes.
So the question is, how do we stop pacing? Because apparently trying to force ourselves out of the cage doesn't work. The sources argue that we don't get free by fighting our flaws or aggressively launching another self-improvement project.
No, not at all.
We open the door by accepting that the cage exists.
And this brings us to the core solution presented in the text Radical Acceptance. But, it is a concept that is very easily misunderstood.
How so?
Well, radical acceptance requires two interdependent elements working simultaneously. Brach compares them to the two wings of a great bird. I mean, a bird cannot fly with only one wing.
Okay, let's figure out how those wings actually operate.
Yeah.
What is the first one?
Wing one is clear seeing, which is essentially mindfulness.
Just noticing things.
Right. It is the ability to recognize exactly what is happening inside you in any given moment without trying to fix it, manage it, or, pull away from it.
So it's looking at the raw data.
Exactly. If you're feeling a surge of jealousy, you just notice the physical sensations. Like, my stomach is tight, my jaw is clenched, my mind is spinning a story about how I'm falling behind.
You just see the reality of the moment exactly as it is without filtering it.
Yes.
Okay, so I can see my jealousy clearly.
Yeah.
But if I stop there, I'm just going to judge myself for being a jealous, petty person. I'm going to weaponize that clear seeing against myself.
Right, which is a trap a lot of people fall into.
So there has to be a second piece to stop the self-loathing.
That is precisely why the second wing is required. Wing two is compassion. Yes. This is our capacity to hold whatever experience we just observed with profound tenderness. Instead of resisting the jealousy or shaming yourself for feeling it, you embrace the experience with the kindness of a mother holding a distressed child.
That's a beautiful image.
It's powerful. You acknowledge the pain of the emotion without condemning the person experiencing it.
So they balance each other out.
Yeah.
Because, if you only have compassion without the clear seeing of mindfulness, you could easily spiral into self-pity.
Oh, very easily.
You just get lost in a victim narrative about how hard your life is. You need the clarity to see the actual wound and the tenderness to hold it.
They provide checks and balances. Mindfulness prevents you from drowning in the emotion, and compassion prevents you from turning into a harsh clinical judge of your own mind.
So what does this all mean when we talk about actual practical ambition in your life?
What do you mean?
Well, I have to push back on this concept a bit because I think anyone listening who is driven or wants to improve their life is going to hit a wall here.
Okay, let's hear it.
Does radical acceptance mean I just resign myself to my worst habits? Like, if I clearly see and kindly accept that I am chronically procrastinating at work, or that I have a terrible temper, or that I'm in an unhealthy relationship, do I just shrug and accept it?
That's a really common concern.
How is radical acceptance not just a fancy therapeutic term for passivity or giving up?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, radical acceptance is actually the absolute opposite of passivity. It is the prerequisite for any genuine transformation.
Really?
Yes, the text uses a brilliant quote from the renowned psychologist Carl Rogers. He said, "The curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change."
It is a paradox. Break down the mechanics of why accepting a flaw allows you to change it, whereas fighting a flaw keeps you stuck.
It all comes down to what drives our actions. When we fight our reality, when we refuse to accept that we are angry or failing or scared, our nervous system is operating out of fear.
We're in fight or flight.
Exactly. We are in a state of resistance, which means the amygdala, the fear center of the brain, is running the show. We react blindly and defensively.
Okay.
Radical acceptance isn't saying, I am happy that I am failing. It is saying, I am honestly assessing the undeniable reality that I am struggling right now.
Ah, really?
When you drop the resistance and accept the data, you calm the nervous system. You bring your rational brain back online, which allows you to choose wise action instead of a fear-based reaction.
And the sources use some pretty extreme examples of this to prove it's not just about sitting quietly in a room. They point to social activists like Mahatma Gandhi and Nelson Mandela.
Those are perfect examples of active acceptance. Mandela didn't accept the political system of apartheid. He fought to dismantle it.
Right.
But he fundamentally accepted the internal reality of his present moment suffering. He accepted the reality of his imprisonment, his grief, and his anger without letting those emotions curdle into bitterness or self-pity.
That's incredible.
By radically accepting his internal landscape, he freed himself to act effectively and strategically for justice, rather than just reacting out of blind rage.
The same goes for the example of Christopher Reeve after his catastrophic paralysis.
Yes.
Practicing radical acceptance didn't mean he threw his hands up and said, well, I guess I'll just never do anything again.
Yeah.
He fully honored his grief. He accepted the undeniable reality of his physical limitations.
Which is incredibly hard to do.
Absolutely. And it was exactly that grounded assessment of reality that allowed him to throw his full spirit into a grueling physical therapy regimen that doctors previously thought was impossible.
Because he wasn't denying what was happening.
Exactly. Acceptance is getting your feet firmly planted on the actual ground so you have the leverage to take a step forward.
Yeah.
You can't navigate your way out of a dense forest if you are stubbornly pretending you aren't lost in the woods.
You have to know your coordinates. Acceptance provides the coordinates.
Okay, so understanding the theory of the two wings is one thing. But let's look at the friction of applying this in real life.
The real-world application.
Right. When you are in the heat of a massive argument with your partner, or you're having a sudden moment of panic because you missed a critical deadline at work, how do you actually deploy mindfulness and compassion?
It's tough.
Because when that adrenaline hits, your rational brain isn't just quiet, it's completely offline.
You cannot deploy the wings while you are in a free fall of reactivity. The momentum is simply too strong.
So what do you do?
To get your rational brain back online, you have to learn how to actively disrupt the momentum. You have to learn how to pause.
Which brings us to a really unexpected story in the sources involving early Air Force test pilots and Chuck Yeager.
Yes. Okay, so in the 1950s, the military was sending these highly trained test pilots up into the Earth's upper atmosphere, higher than anyone had ever flown.
Way up there.
But the air is incredibly thin up there, and normal aerodynamics simply do not apply. The planes would frequently lose lift and go into what's called a flat spin, violently tumbling end over end toward the Earth.
And the pilots reacted exactly how human nature dictates when we feel out of control.
Right. They panicked and they tried to fix it. They frantically applied correction after correction, mashing the controls, trying to force the plane to stabilize.
But because there wasn't enough air resistance, their frantic inputs actually made the spin wilder.
Exactly. The harder they fought to regain control, the faster they plummeted. They literally fought themselves to death because they couldn't stop reacting.
Until Chuck Yeager gets in a plane.
Yep.
He goes up into the atmosphere, loses lift, and goes into one of these violent tumbling tailspins. But his spin is so violent that he gets thrown around the cockpit and is knocked completely unconscious.
He is completely blacked out, plummeting toward the Earth for 7 miles.
7 miles.
But because he is unconscious, he literally takes his hands off the controls. And by doing absolutely nothing, the plane eventually falls far enough that it hits denser air.
The aerodynamics naturally return.
Exactly. The plane stabilizes itself, he wakes up, grabs the stick, and lands safely. He survived simply because he was forced to stop trying to fix the problem.
He took his hands off the controls. And that dynamic is the perfect introduction to the core daily practice of this deep dive, the sacred pause.
The sacred pause is the conscious version of taking your hands off the controls.
I love that.
It is a temporary, intentional disengagement. It's a choice to stop whatever you were doing in the middle of a trigger, whether that's arguing, planning, worrying, or rushing, and simply step out of the momentum.
You just stop.
You stop asking your brain, what do I do next to fix this? And you just become wholeheartedly present with what is happening inside your body.
It mirrors the mythic story of the Buddha sitting under the Bodhi tree.
Oh, yes.
On the night he is about to achieve enlightenment, he is confronted by the demon Mara. And Mara represents our shadow, our delusions, our greed, our deepest insecurities, and our rage.
All the heavy stuff.
Right. The Buddha doesn't draw a sword to fight Mara. But he also doesn't run away. He just sits there paying close, tender attention to the experience without reacting to it.
And this is where it intersects with our daily lives. How often do we encounter our own internal Mara, a sudden wave of shame or a flash of inadequacy, and we immediately reach for the controls.
We mash the buttons.
We lash out at our spouse, we shut down emotionally, or we compulsively check our phones to numb out. The sacred pause is how we build our own Bodhi tree in the middle of a chaotic Tuesday.
So how does taking your hands off the controls actually look when someone is verbally attacking you? Let's look at the couple in the sources.
Oh, Laura and Phil.
Yes. This is a real-world masterclass in the sacred pause. Laura was a nurse who sought therapy because her marriage to her husband Phil was essentially a war zone.
They couldn't communicate without it turning into a screaming match.
And Laura was almost always the one escalating it to an explosive level.
And to understand her reaction, you have to look at the neural grooves we talked about earlier.
The tiger cage.
Exactly. Laura was raised by an incredibly volatile, hypercritical mother who constantly made her feel like a failure. Laura actually referred to her mother as the dragon.
Right, so her baseline operating system was defensive. Anytime Phil made even a mild, practical observation like pointing out how she was organizing the garage, Laura's unhealed childhood shame was instantly triggered.
Her brain didn't see her husband offering help. Her amygdala saw the dragon attacking her.
Wow.
Her only learned defense mechanism was to explode. In one particular scene in the text, Phil was ignoring her to watch the news, and Laura felt so invalidated and enraged that she literally started hurling heavy law books at his head.
Law books.
Yes, she was entirely trapped in the trance. The moment her insecurity was touched, her rational brain shut down and she regressed. She went on automatic pilot, frantically mashing the controls with rage to cover up the raw, terrifying pain of feeling unworthy of her husband's attention.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The therapist didn't just give Laura generic communication tips or tell her to calm down.
No, that never works anyway.
Right. She taught her the sacred pause using this incredible analogy from bullfighting.
The querencia.
Yes. In a bullfighting arena, there is a specific spot where the bull feels safe. It's called the querencia. When the bull manages to find its querencia, it gathers its strength. It stops reacting to the matador's cape, and it taps into its real grounded power.
And as long as the bull is blindly charging at the cape, the matador is entirely in control.
Exactly. But when the bull stands still in the querencia, it is centered, present, and truly dangerous.
Laura was spending her entire marriage blindly charging at the cape. She was letting her fear and her triggers control her completely.
But the therapist taught her that the sacred pause was how she could find her own internal querencia.
It's such a brilliant shift.
It reminds me of when your computer freezes up because it's processing too much data.
Yeah.
The human instinct is to frantically mash the keyboard and click the mouse 100 times to force it to work.
We've all done that.
But every click just overloads the processor even more. The pause is hitting Control-Alt-Delete. You aren't fixing the software yet. You are just stopping the overwhelming input so the system can finally catch up.
That's a great way to look at it. You are resetting the system so you can actually see the screen.
So Laura puts this to the test. She is at a family dinner, and her mother, the actual dragon, leans across the table and launches a vicious, unprovoked verbal attack.
Oh, boy.
She criticizes Laura for being unemployed, accusing her of waiting for manna from heaven and just mooching off her husband.
Historically, this is the exact moment Laura's system would crash. She would go nuclear.
But this time, she initiates the pause. Her heart is pounding, there is a searing heat in her chest, and every instinct is screaming at her to fight back.
Mash the controls.
Exactly. But instead of grabbing the controls, she just takes a breath, says, "I don't know, Mom," and leans back in her chair.
She took her hands off the stick.
She did.
And what happens next inside her mind is the real magic of the pause.
She felt like her chest was going to burst. But she just sat in her querencia, She deployed the two wings.
Right, mindfulness and compassion.
She noticed the intense heat in her body and the defensive stories swirling in her head. That's the clear seeing. And then she gently whispered to herself, "This feels horrible, and I can handle it."
That's the compassion.
Yes. And as she sat there, not fighting the physical sensations, the sharp, aggressive anger slowly dissolved. And underneath the rage, she just felt a profound sorrow.
She got to the root of it.
By not fighting the dragon, she realized she wasn't an angry monster. She was just an incredibly sad, wounded person.
This raises an important question for anyone listening. How much of our lives do we spend running away from our own shadow?
Probably most of it.
We expend massive amounts of energy running from the parts of ourselves we deem unacceptable. Our fear, our neediness, our deep shame. We are convinced that if we turn around and actually face those feelings, they will destroy us.
But Laura's story proves the exact opposite.
It does. When you stop running, when you pause and actually face the dragon with mindfulness and compassion, it loses its power over you. Pausing might actually be the bravest thing a person can do.
And it ultimately saved her marriage.
Wow, really?
Yeah, because the next time Phil said something that triggered her insecurities, instead of throwing a book, she paused. She found her footing, and she was able to look at him and say, "I'm feeling that same fear again, that you don't really want to be around me."
That is so vulnerable.
She communicated her genuine vulnerability instead of her rage. And Phil, who was completely used to battling a raging monster, instantly softened. He admitted his own faults, and they actually connected on a real level.
The pause disrupts our deeply entrenched patterns. It creates a gap between stimulus and response, and in that gap, a new, creative, wise response can emerge.
It allows us to keep our appointment with our actual life rather than just surviving it on autopilot.
Beautifully said.
So how do you, the person listening right now, put this into practice? How do you find your currencia this week?
You don't need a meditation cushion or an hour of uninterrupted silence.
No, not at all. It is about finding micro moments in your normal routine to just take your hands off the controls. Maybe it's taking 3 deep, intentional breaths before you open your laptop to start the workday.
Or maybe it's feeling the physical weight of your feet on the floor before you fire back a defensive text message.
Yeah. Or maybe it's just sitting in your car in the driveway for 60 seconds doing absolutely nothing before you walk into the chaos of your house.
It's about creating a time out of time to let those two wings of clear seeing and compassion deploy.
It's the ultimate practice of trusting that you do not always have to aggressively manage the universe to be safe.
Exactly.
Before we wrap up, there is a much bigger implication here about how we view our flaws. And I want to make sure we leave you with this final, somewhat provocative thought.
I like the sound of that.
We spend so much of our energy curating our lives, hiding our insecurities, and trying to present this flawless version of ourselves so that we will be accepted. We are terrified of our shadow.
We view our imperfections as the ultimate barrier. We believe that our flaws, our fears, and our vulnerabilities are the very things that keep us isolated from everyone else.
Right.
But what if the exact opposite is true?
How so?
What if the parts of ourselves that we are the most deeply ashamed of are actually the only things that can authentically connect us to the shared human experience?
Oh, wow.
When we strip away the performance and stop pacing the cage, we find that our imperfection isn't the barrier to love and belonging. It is the very bridge to it.
The bridge to it.
Yes. Because it is only when we finally accept our own messy, vulnerable reality that we can truly recognize and love it in others.
That reframes everything. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep asking those big questions, keep exploring the concepts we talked about today, and try taking your hands off the controls just once today.
Just once.
See what happens when you stop fighting the current and just let yourself be exactly where you are.